Don't look at me like that, Nolan. Mason's voice cracked on my name. And that was the first moment I realized losing the championship wasn't the thing that was going to ruin me. The final whistle had barely stopped echoing across the stadium. 1 second, we were still chasing the ball, like we could force time to give us another chance. The next, their bench exploded, our crowd went quiet, and I was standing there with grass stains on my knees, sweat freezing under my jersey, trying to understand how an entire season could end in one bad bounce. Around me, guys dropped to the turf. Someone cursed. Someone else pulled his shirt over his face. Coach was yelling something from the sideline, but it sounded far away, like I was underwater. I should have been thinking about the missed pass in the 88th minute, or the shot Mason almost buried in stoppage time, or the fact that scouts had been watching. I should have been thinking about anything normal. Instead, I looked for him. Mason Brooks stood near the penalty box, bent over with both hands on his knees, captain's band still tied around his arm. His dark hair was stuck to his forehead. His chest rose and fell hard, like he'd run miles past the end of the game and still couldn't stop. I'd seen Mason angry before. I'd seen him fired up, cocky, loud, impossible. But I had never seen him look small. Not really. Not Mason. He was the guy who clapped twice and pulled everyone back into shape. The guy who told freshmen to keep their heads up. The guy who smiled at reporters even after bad games because somebody had to. But right then, he just stared at the turf like it had betrayed him personally. My stomach twisted. I took one step toward him before I caught myself. Bad idea. We were teammates. That was all. You didn't cross a field full of cameras and grieving guys just because your chest hurt watching one person fall apart. You didn't make it obvious. Especially not with Mason. Especially not when I'd spent almost 2 years pretending the way I noticed him was normal. Reed. I turned. Caleb, our right back, slapped my shoulder, too hard, his eyes red. Hell of a season, man. Yeah. My voice barely worked. You too. He moved on, and I looked back across the field. Mason had straightened up. For a second, I thought he was looking at Coach, or the scoreboard, or anywhere else. But then his eyes found mine. Just mine. Everything around us blurred in this stupid, impossible way. The other team celebrating. The stadium lights. The noise coming back in waves. None of it mattered for that 1 second. Mason didn't nod, didn't smile, didn't do that captain thing where he acted fine so everyone else could breathe. He just looked at me like he was trying not to break in front of the only person who might notice. My throat went dry. I wanted to say something. Anything. But we were 50 yards apart, and I didn't trust my face, so I just stood there like an idiot with my heart pounding against my ribs. Then Coach blew his whistle and shouted for us to line up for handshakes. The moment snapped. Mason looked away first. Of course he did. I told myself it meant nothing. He was upset. We all were. People look at each other after losses. That's normal. Totally normal. But when we walked past each other in the handshake line, his shoulder brushed mine. Barely. Less than a second. Still, his hand caught my wrist before I could keep moving. Not hard. Just enough to stop me. I looked down at his fingers, then up at him. His jaw was tight. His eyes were still too bright. Stay close after this, he muttered. So low I almost missed it. My pulse jumped. What? Mason let go like he'd touched something hot. The guy behind me bumped my back, telling me to move. Mason's face shut down fast, Captain Mask sliding back into place. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I knew it wasn't. Because after we shook hands, after the photos, after our crowd gave us that sad little applause people give when they don't know what else to do, Mason didn't look at anyone again. Not Coach. Not the reporters. Not our teammates. Only me. And somehow, after losing everything, he looked at me like I was the only thing still there. I should probably explain something about Mason Brooks before I go any further. Because if you had seen him that night, standing under the stadium lights with his jaw clenched and his whole body locked up, like one wrong word might make him fall apart, you might think that was just who he was. Intense. Serious. Captain of the team. But that was not the Mason I knew first. The Mason I knew first was loud in the locker room, always stealing somebody's towel, always yelling, "Reed, look alive," even when I was literally the only person paying attention. He was the guy who could make a brutal morning practice feel less miserable just by showing up with 2 coffees and pretending he bought the second one by accident. "They messed up my order," he told me once, holding out an iced vanilla latte even though I had never seen him drink anything but black coffee. I stared at it. You expect me to believe Starbucks accidentally made my exact order? Mason shrugged, already walking toward the field. Guess the universe likes you. I told myself that meant nothing. I got really good at that. Mason remembered everyone's stuff. That was part of being captain. He knew Caleb taped his ankle before every game. He knew Coach hated when guys showed up late without cleats tied. He knew our backup keeper listened to country music before penalties, which should have been illegal, but somehow worked. So if Mason remembered how I took my coffee, or that I hated orange Gatorade, or that I always got quiet before big games, it was probably just because he paid attention. That was the safe explanation. The problem was, Mason had a way of paying attention that made it feel dangerous. Like during practice, when Coach split us into drills, and Mason always found a reason to be near me. He would jog backward in front of me, grinning like an idiot, cleats tearing up little pieces of grass. Come on, Reed. Give me something pretty. You mean a pass? I mean a masterpiece. You are so annoying. And yet you keep feeding me goals. Then I would send the ball through a gap nobody else saw. And Mason would catch it perfectly, like we were wired into the same thought. Every time, he would point back at me before celebrating. Not the whole team. Me. I pretended not to notice that too. Before the championship game, it got worse. We were in the tunnel waiting to walk out, shoulder to shoulder with the other team. Crowd noise rumbling through the concrete. My hands felt cold even inside my gloves. Mason noticed. Of course he did. He stepped closer until his sleeve brushed mine. You nervous? I kept my eyes forward. No, liar. Captain. Reed. I looked at him then, which was my first mistake. He was smiling, but not in the usual cocky way. Softer. Almost private. After we win tonight, I need to tell you something. My chest tightened so fast it actually hurt. Tell me now. Mason shook his head. Nope. You will get all weird and overthink it. I do not overthink. He looked at me for one long second, eyes flicking over my face like he knew every lie I had ever told myself. You absolutely do. Then the ref called us forward, and the moment disappeared into noise. For the next 90 minutes, I held on to that sentence like an idiot. After we win. After we win. After we win. But we did not win. And now, walking toward the locker room with grass stuck to my socks and Mason a few steps ahead of me, I could not stop wondering if losing the championship meant I had lost whatever he was finally going to say. The locker room after a championship loss has a sound to it. Not silence exactly. Worse. Shoes scraping tile. Tape ripping off ankles. Lockers opening too hard. Somebody sniffing like he was trying not to cry. Nobody played music. Nobody joked. Even Caleb, who usually could not survive 5 minutes without saying something stupid, sat on the bench with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Coach came in last. His face was red from the cold and from trying to hold back whatever speech he had planned before we lost. He clapped once, but it sounded wrong in that room. Heads up. Nobody moved. Coach exhaled through his nose. I know it hurts. It should hurt. That means it mattered. Mason stood near his locker, still in full kit, captain's band loose in his hand now. He was not looking at Coach. He was looking at the wall behind him, jaw tight, like if he focused hard enough, he could rewind the last 3 minutes of the game. Coach talked about effort, about pride, about how one game did not erase a season. Normal stuff. Good stuff, probably. I barely heard any of it because Mason had not sat down. He had not taken off his cleats. He had not blinked enough. Then Tyler Henson, our backup striker, muttered, "Would have been nice to finish that last one." The room went dead. Not quiet. Dead. My head snapped up before I could stop it. Tyler was staring into his locker like he had not meant to say it loud enough. But he had. Everyone heard. Mason turned slowly. For half a second, I thought he might snap. Part of me wanted him to. Instead, he nodded once. Yeah. His voice was flat. It would have. My chest tightened. Mason. I did not mean to say his name. It just came out. Too sharp. Too protective. A couple guys looked over. Mason looked at me too, and that was worse. His expression changed for maybe 1 second, like my voice had reached somewhere the rest of the room had not. Then he shut it down. It is on me. Coach cut in immediately. No, it is not. But Mason was already pulling his jersey over his head, movements rough and angry. I am captain. I missed. It is on me. That is not how soccer works. I said before my brain could catch up. Caleb glanced between us. Someone coughed. Tyler looked down fast. Mason froze with his shirt halfway in his hand. Slowly, he turned back to me. The air between us felt too small. You defending me now, Reed? It should have sounded like a joke. It almost did. But nobody laughed. Not even Mason. My face went hot. Someone should. There it was. Out loud. Too much. Too honest. Mason stared at me for a long second, and I swear something in his eyes cracked before he looked away. Coach cleared his throat and started talking again, louder this time, trying to drag the room back to normal. But normal was gone. I could feel it. The whole team could feel it. Mason shoved his gear into his bag without showering, without changing, without waiting for anyone. He grabbed his phone, his keys, and nothing else. When he walked past me, his shoulder brushed mine again. This time it was not an accident. His hand bumped my wrist, quick, hidden by the movement of his bag. Then he was gone. A minute later, I saw his Navy team jacket still hanging inside his open locker. I stared at it like an idiot. Caleb noticed and gave me this tired little look. You going after him? He forgot his jacket. Caleb's mouth twitched, but he did not smile. Right. I pulled the jacket off the hook. It was heavier than I expected, still warm from being in the crowded room. I told myself I was just returning it. That was all. A normal teammate thing. Completely normal. But when I stepped into the hallway and saw Mason alone under the flickering stadium lights, head bowed, one hand pressed against the wall like he needed it to stay upright, the lie stopped working. Because I did not want to give him his jacket. I wanted to be the reason he did not have to stand there alone. The hallway felt colder than the locker room. Or maybe that was just my body realizing I had followed him. Mason did not turn around right away. He stayed with one hand against the wall, head lowered, breathing through his nose like he was trying to make himself normal before anyone saw. I stopped a few feet behind him with his jacket in my hands. For some reason, walking closer felt harder than taking a penalty kick. You forgot this. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. Mason's shoulders tightened. Then he looked back. His eyes landed on the jacket first, then on me, and something flickered across his face too fast for me to name. You did not have to bring it. It is cold out. I noticed. He took one step toward me, but not enough to grab it. The jacket hung between us like some stupid excuse neither of us believed anymore. I tried to smile. You planning to walk to the bus in short sleeves and make the loss more dramatic? That should have worked. Mason always took the bait. He always had some dumb comeback ready. Something about me worrying too much or him being built different. But this time, he just stared at me. No smile. No joke. The silence hit harder than Tyler's comment in the locker room. I swallowed. Mason, do not do that. His voice was low. Do what? Talk to me like I am everyone else. I froze. Rain tapped against the glass doors at the end of the hall. Somewhere behind us, a locker slammed, muffled by distance. I became way too aware of how empty the hallway was. How close he was standing now. How tired he looked without the captain thing covering it up. I am not, I managed. Mason's mouth twitched, but it was not a smile. Yeah, you are. You are doing the whole team speech thing. It was not your fault. You played great. Keep your head up. Because it is true. That does not mean I want to hear it from you. My chest tightened. Then what do you want from me? The question came out before I could soften it. Mason looked at me, really looked, and for a second the air just disappeared. His eyes moved over my face like he was searching for permission and hating himself for needing it. I do not know, he whispered. That was worse than any answer. I held out the jacket because my hands needed something to do. He reached for it at the same time. Our fingers touched around the fabric. Barely anything. A brush. A stupid accident. Except neither of us let go. His knuckles rested against mine, warm despite the cold hallway. I should have pulled back. I knew that. My brain was practically yelling it. Teammates did not stand in empty hallways holding the same jacket like it meant something. But Mason's thumb shifted, just a little, catching the side of my hand. My stomach dropped. His eyes flicked down to our hands, then back up to me. Nolan. It was not a warning. It was not casual either. My name sounded different in his mouth right then. Rougher. Careful. Like he had almost said something else instead. I could hear my own heartbeat. What were you going to tell me? Mason blinked. Before the game. In the tunnel. His jaw tightened. For 1 second, I thought he might finally say it. Whatever it was. Whatever had been sitting between us since before the whistle, maybe longer than that. He stepped closer. Close enough that the jacket pressed against both our chests. Close enough that I could see the tiny cut near his lip from the first half. His voice dropped so low I felt it more than heard it. I was going to tell you that you make it hard to focus. My breath caught. On soccer, Mason did not answer. The hallway went so quiet it felt like the whole stadium was holding still with us. Then the locker room door opened behind us. Voices spilled out. Caleb laughed at something, then stopped mid-sound. Mason let go of the jacket so fast my hand jerked back. By the time I turned, two teammates were standing at the end of the hall, looking from him to me to the jacket between us. Mason put the captain mask back on like flipping a switch. "Bus leaves in 10, he muttered, taking the jacket from me without meeting my eyes. Then he walked past me toward the exit. I stood there with my fingers still tingling, telling myself I had imagined the whole thing. But I had not. Because Mason had not said I made it hard to focus on the game. He had left that part empty. And somehow, that made it worse. The bus ride back to campus was worse than the loss. At least on the field, there had been noise. On the bus, there was just the engine, the wet road under the tires, and 40 guys pretending not to think about the same thing. Most of the team fell into this half-dead silence, heads against windows, hoodies pulled low. Someone near the back played music through one earbud too loud. Coach sat up front with his arms crossed, staring straight ahead like he could still see the scoreboard burned into the windshield. I took a seat halfway back because that was where I always sat. Mason usually sat across the aisle from me, one row up, close enough to steal my snacks, close enough to kick my shoe when he wanted my attention. That night, he walked past me without stopping. He sat near the front. Alone. I watched him drop into the seat, shoulders tense under the jacket I had given back to him. My fingers still remembered where his hand had touched mine. I hated that. I hated that my body had turned 1 second in a hallway into something I could feel everywhere. "You too good." Caleb slid into the seat beside me before I could pretend to sleep. I looked at him too fast. "What?" He gave me that look people give when they already know you are lying and just want to see how bad you are at it. "You and Brooks. Why would we not be good?" Caleb leaned back, stretching his legs into the aisle. "I do not know. Maybe because you chased him out of the locker room like somebody's worried girlfriend." My face went hot instantly. "Shut up. I am not judging. There is nothing to judge." "Sure." He glanced toward the front of the bus. Mason had his head against the window, but I could tell he was not asleep. His jaw was moving slightly, like he was chewing the inside of his cheek. Caleb lowered his voice. "Look, all I am saying is, he listens to you. He listens to Coach. No, he obeys Coach. Different thing." I did not answer. The bus hit a bump, and my knee knocked the seat in front of me. Caleb watched me for another second, softer now. After Tyler ran his mouth, I thought Brooks was going to lose it. He should have. Maybe. Caleb's mouth twisted. "But then you said his name, and he stopped." My throat tightened. I looked out the window at the dark highway, rain streaking sideways across the glass. "You are reading into it." "Maybe." Caleb shrugged. "Or maybe everybody else is finally catching up." That made my stomach drop. Everybody else. He did not get to answer. Mason stood up at the front of the bus. For a second, I thought he was going to the bathroom in the back. Instead, he turned, eyes moving down the aisle until they found mine. The bus lights were dim, blue and gray over his face. His expression gave nothing away. Then his phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. A text from Mason. "Do not listen to Caleb." My pulse jumped so hard I almost dropped the phone. I looked up again. Mason was still watching me. Not smiling. Not hiding either. Another message came through. "I know what he is doing." I typed back before I could overthink it. "And what is he doing?" Mason read it. His thumb moved over his screen. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again, trying to make me say something stupid. I stared at that message until the words blurred a little. Beside me, Caleb leaned closer. "Is that him?" I locked my phone instantly. "Mind your business." Caleb laughed under his breath. "Man, you are so bad at this." I wanted to deny it. I really did. But before I could, Mason sent one more text. I should not have said that in the hallway. My chest tightened. I waited for another message. An explanation. A joke. A way out. It came 30 seconds later. But I meant it. I stopped breathing for a second. Up front, Mason turned back toward the window like he had not just ruined my ability to think. Caleb did not say anything this time. He just looked at my face, then toward Mason, then back at me. His teasing disappeared. "Nolan." I swallowed hard. "Do not." "Okay." But his voice was gentle now, which somehow made it worse. For the rest of the ride, I kept my phone face down on my thigh like it was dangerous. Mason did not text again. He did not look back either. But when we finally pulled into campus, he waited until everyone started standing, then glanced over his shoulder once. Quick, quiet, enough to make my heart do something stupid all over again. And that was when I realized the problem was not that people were starting to notice us. The problem was Mason had stopped acting like he cared if they did. By Monday morning, the whole campus had moved on faster than I had. People still said things like, "tough loss," when they saw us, but they said it while holding coffee, rushing to class, laughing with friends. Like our season had been a sad headline, they already scrolled past. The team did not get that luxury. Coach called a recovery session at 10. Light stretch. Film later. No balls, no drills, nothing intense. Just enough to remind us we still belonged to something even after it broke. I got there early because I could not sit in my apartment staring at Mason's texts anymore. I had read them so many times the words felt burned into my phone. I should not have said that in the hallway, but I meant it. That was the part one could not shake. Not because it was clear. It was not. It was actually the worst kind of sentence. Too honest to ignore. Too vague to trust. Mason was already on the field when I arrived. Of course he was. Gray hoodie, black shorts, captain's band gone, headphones around his neck instead of over his ears. He was sitting on the bench near midfield, elbows on his knees, staring at the turf like it might answer something for him. I almost turned around. Then he looked up. Too late. His eyes found me, and for a second neither of us moved. Normal teammates would wave. Maybe joke about being early. Mason just watched me walk closer like every step mattered. Could not sleep. I dropped my bag near the bench. He gave a small breath that almost became a laugh. That obvious? You look like you argued with a wall and lost. That got me half a smile. Barely. Still, my chest loosened like an idiot. Mason leaned back, hands shoved into his hoodie pocket. I watched the game again. Why would you do that to yourself? Because I am stupid. Fair. The silence after that was not awkward exactly. It was loaded. Like the space between us had learned too much over the weekend and did not know how to act casual anymore. I sat on the opposite end of the bench, leaving a careful amount of room. Mason noticed. His eyes flicked to the gap, then away. You are doing that thing again. I stared at the field. What thing? Acting like if you sit too close, the NCAA is going to investigate us. A laugh slipped out before I could stop it. That is not a thing. Then why are you all the way over there? My face heated. Because you are weird before coffee. I brought you one. He reached under the bench and pulled out a plastic cup with condensation running down the sides. I looked at it. Iced vanilla latte. My exact order. Again, my throat went stupidly tight. Mason, they messed up my order. His mouth curved, but his eyes did not. Not really. Right. I took the cup, and our fingers brushed. He did not pull away this time. Neither did I. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but my whole body reacted like it had been waiting for permission. Mason's gaze dropped to our hands. Then he looked at me, quieter now. I did not want you to leave Saturday. My fingers tightened around the cup. After the hallway? He shook his head. After the game. That hit somewhere deeper than I expected. I tried to make my voice normal. You had the whole team. That is not what I said. Wind moved across the field, lifting the edge of his hoodie. I could hear players starting to arrive in the distance, car doors shutting, someone laughing too loud near the parking lot. Mason heard them too. His jaw tensed, but he did not move away. I do not know what I am doing, Nolan. He looked almost angry saying it. Not at me. At himself. I keep telling myself it was just the loss. The pressure. Bad timing. My heart was pounding now. And Mason looked right at me. No captain mask. No joke waiting behind his mouth. And I do not want to go back to normal. The words landed between us, simple and dangerous. I forgot how to breathe for a second. Behind us, Caleb shouted something from across the field, and Mason finally leaned back, creating space just as the others got closer. But before he stood, his knee bumped mine. Once. Deliberate. Hidden from everyone else. Drink your coffee, Reed. His voice had gone casual again, but his eyes stayed on me a second too long. You look like you are overthinking. I was. I absolutely was. But for the first time, I was not the only one. For about 20 minutes, Monday almost felt normal. Almost. Coach had us spread across the field in loose circles, stretching hamstrings, rolling ankles, pretending our bodies were the only things that needed recovering. Mason stayed across from me in our group, close enough that I could see the dark shadows under his eyes, far enough that nobody could say anything. Every now and then, our gazes caught. Every time, one of us looked away first. Usually me. I was getting really good at cowardice. Caleb, unfortunately, was getting really good at noticing. During water break, he walked up beside me, unscrewing his bottle with that fake casual face people use when they are absolutely about to ruin your life. So, I did not look at him. No, I did not say anything. You said so. That counts. Caleb grinned, then nodded toward Mason, who was talking to Coach near the sideline. He brought you coffee again. He brings people stuff. He brought you your weird sugary milk drink. It is coffee. It is dessert with ice. I shoved his shoulder, but my face was already warm. Across the field, Mason glanced over. Not at Caleb. At Caleb's hand on my shoulder. It was quick. Tiny. But his expression tightened before he turned back to Coach. My stomach did something stupid. Caleb noticed that too, because of course he did. Interesting. Stop. I am just saying. Brooks looked like he wanted to tackle me, and we are not even doing contact today. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out wrong. Too thin. Too nervous. He is stressed. Caleb's smile faded a little. Maybe. Or maybe you two need to figure out whatever this is before the whole team starts guessing for fun. That sentence hit harder than I expected. The whole team. Guessing. Watching. Turning tiny things into jokes. I looked toward Mason again, and this time he was already looking back. For 1 second, I felt that same pull from the hallway, the bus, the bench. Then Tyler walked up beside him, said something, and Mason laughed. A real laugh. Or at least it looked real from where I stood. Tyler bumped his arm, and Mason did not move away. Just like that, my brain took the wheel and drove straight into panic. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Tyler was his teammate. Our teammate. People were allowed to laugh. People were allowed to touch arms. That was normal. But all I could think about was Mason saying he did not want to go back to normal, then acting like normal was suddenly easy with someone else. After practice, I moved fast. Too fast. Cleats off, hoodie on, bag over my shoulder before half the guys even made it inside. I did not want to be trapped in another hallway with feelings I could not explain. I had almost reached the parking lot when Mason called my name. Nolan. I stopped, but I did not turn right away. Bad move. He caught up anyway, slightly out of breath, hair still damp from sweat. You leaving? Looks like it. His eyebrows pulled together. Did I do something? I laughed once, short and ugly. No, that is kind of the problem. Mason stared at me. The parking lot was half full, guys walking to cars, doors slamming, somebody yelling about lunch. Too public. Too many eyes. Mason lowered his voice. What does that mean? It means you say things, and then you act like maybe you wish you had not. His face changed immediately. That is not what is happening. Is it not? I hated how shaky my voice sounded. Because I cannot tell anymore. Mason looked over his shoulder. Tyler and 2 other guys were coming out of the facility. He saw them, then took half a step back from me. Small. Instinctive. But I saw it. And it hurt way more than it should have. My chest went tight. Right. Nolan. No, it is fine. I adjusted my bag strap, even though it did not need adjusting. I get it. Team captain. People talk. We can just forget it. Mason's jaw tightened. Do not put words in my mouth. Then say something. The challenge hung there. His eyes locked on mine, and for a second I thought he would. I thought he would finally stop hiding behind almosts and vague texts and coffee cups. But then Tyler called. Brooks, you coming? Mason looked away. Just for a second. But it was enough. I nodded like something had been confirmed. Yeah, that is what I thought. I walked off before he could stop me, heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. I told myself I was protecting both of us. Protecting the team. Protecting whatever friendship we had left. But when I got to my car and looked back, Mason was still standing there in the lot, staring after me like he had just lost something else he had no idea how to win back. I did not answer Mason's text that night. There were 3 of them. The first came 15 minutes after I left the parking lot. We need to talk. The second came an hour later. I did not step back because I regret it. The third showed up at 11:42, right when I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling like it had personally offended me. Please do not decide what I feel for me. That one hurt. Mostly because he was right. I typed out 7 different replies and deleted all of them. By Tuesday afternoon, I had convinced myself distance was the mature choice. Which was stupid, Because nothing about avoiding someone you had to see at practice was mature. It was just cowardice wearing a hoodie. I got to the facility late on purpose. Most of the guys were already on the field. The locker room was almost empty. I dropped my bag by my locker, moved fast, kept my head down. Then the door shut behind me. Not loud, just final. I knew who it was before I turned around. Mason stood there with his backpack over one shoulder, hair still damp from the rain outside, eyes fixed on me like he had spent all night deciding not to run. My stomach dropped. You cannot keep doing that. I forced a laugh that sounded nothing like me. Changing clothes. Leaving. He stepped closer, but stopped a few feet away. Careful. Like I was something he might scare off. You leave before I can say anything. Then you decide what I meant. I shut my locker harder than I meant to. You had a chance to say something. In front of Tyler? You looked away. Mason's jaw flexed. Because Tyler was right there. Exactly. The word came out too sharp. He flinched, just a little, and I hated myself for noticing. The room went quiet except for the hum of the vents and the muffled sound of balls hitting turf outside. Mason dropped his backpack onto the bench. I am not ashamed of you. My chest tightened so fast I had to look away. Do not say it like that. Why? Because it sounds good. He frowned. It is true. Then why did you step back? Mason rubbed both hands over his face, frustrated, tired, real. Not Captain Real. Just Mason. Because I got scared. That stopped me. He lowered his hands. His eyes were red around the edges, like he had slept about as much as I had. Not of you. Not of this. Of everyone else getting to it before we even understand it. I swallowed. There isn't it. He looked at me for a long second. You know there is. My heart started pounding. I hated how quiet he was. I hated how much I believed him. I do not know anything, Mason. You keep almost saying things. You text me things. You bring me coffee. You look at me like. I stopped because my voice almost broke, and there was no way I was doing that in a locker room. Mason moved closer. One step. Like what? I shook my head. Do not. Like what, Nolan? His voice was softer now. Not pushing. Asking me to stop hiding too. I looked up. Big mistake. He was right there. Close enough that I could see the tiny line between his brows, the place his mouth tightened when he was trying not to say too much. Like I matter more than I should. Mason went still. Then his face changed in a way that made my throat close. You do. The words were quiet. Simple. No joke to hide behind. No easy exit. I looked down at my hands because they were shaking, barely, but enough. Mason noticed. Of course he noticed. He reached out slowly, giving me every chance to move away. His fingers touched the inside of my wrist, light as anything. I do not want normal, he murmured. I tried. I cannot do it. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. What do you want? The question sat between us. Mason's thumb shifted once against my wrist. His eyes stayed on mine. I want to stop pretending I only look for you because you are my teammate. My whole body went quiet. For a second, neither of us moved. Then a whistle blew outside, sharp and sudden, and someone yelled, Brooks, read. Coach is asking for you. Mason closed his eyes for half a second, almost laughing, almost breaking. When he opened them, he did not let go right away. That mattered, maybe more than the words. After practice, he whispered, No running. I nodded, even though my pulse was losing its mind. No almosts. Mason's mouth curved, small and nervous and real. No almosts. Then he let go. We walked out separately, like nothing had happened. But my wrist still felt warm. And for the first time, normal felt like the lie both of us were finally done telling. Practice that day felt like trying to act normal with a fire alarm going off inside my chest. Mason and I ran drills. We listened to Coach. We passed the ball back and forth like our hands had not been shaking in the locker room 20 minutes earlier. Nobody else knew. Or maybe they did. Caleb kept looking at us like he was watching the last 5 minutes of a movie he had already guessed the ending to. But Mason did not run. That was the part one kept noticing. He did not avoid me during water breaks. He did not joke too loud to cover the silence. He did not look away every time our eyes met. Once, after I sent him a pass through 2 defenders, he caught it clean, turned, and scored into the corner of the practice net. No crowd. No championship. Just the dull snap of the ball hitting mesh. He pointed back at me like he always did. Only this time, he smiled like it meant something different. After practice, I expected him to disappear into captain duties or get pulled aside by Coach or find some new reason to almost talk. Instead, He walked straight to me while I was tying my shoes near the bench. His hair was damp, his hoodie half-zipped, his expression nervous in a way I was still not used to seeing on him. "You ready?" I looked around. "For what?" "You said no almost." My stomach flipped. "Right." We ended up back on the field after everyone left. The stadium lights were still on, though half of them had dimmed, leaving the turf washed in soft gray. The place felt strange without noise. No fans, no whistles, no teammates yelling for a pass. Just wet grass, cold air, and Mason walking beside me with his hands shoved in his pockets like he was afraid of what they might do if he let them out. We stopped near midfield. Same field where everything had fallen apart. Somehow, it felt smaller now. Mason stared at the goal for a while. "I keep thinking about that shot." "Mason, I know." He breathed out, almost laughing at himself. "I know. I am working on shutting up." I nudged his shoulder lightly. "Good luck." He looked at me then, and the joke faded, but not in a heavy way. More like he was finally tired of carrying it alone. "I am sorry I made you feel like I regretted it." My throat tightened. "I am sorry I ran. You were scared. So were you." He nodded. No defense. No captain's speech. Just truth. "Yeah." The wind moved between us. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then Mason pulled one hand from his pocket and held it out. Not dramatic, not smooth, actually kind of awkward. His fingers hovered there between us. I do not know how fast to do this. My chest ached in this quiet, stupidly warm way. Me neither. But I know I do not want to pretend you are just my teammate. I looked at his hand, then at him. "What about the team?" Mason swallowed, eyes flicking toward the empty stands before coming back to me. "We do not owe them a press conference." That made me laugh, soft and shaky. He smiled too. "But I am not going to step back from you again just because someone walks by." That was the thing. Not a huge speech. Not some perfect promise. Just that. Simple enough to believe. So I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine. Careful at first, then steadier when I did not pull away. We stood there on the same field where I had watched him break after the final whistle, and somehow the loss did not feel like the only ending anymore. Mason looked down at our hands, then let out a breath like he had been holding it for days. "This feels real," he murmured. I squeezed his hand once. "Good." His eyes lifted to mine. "Good. Yeah." I tried to sound normal and failed completely, because I am really tired of telling myself it is not. Mason laughed under his breath, then stepped closer, shoulder brushing mine. We did not kiss under the stadium lights. Maybe another story would have done that. Maybe another version of me would have needed some big movie moment to believe him. But Mason just kept holding my hand. And when we walked off the field together, past the bench, past the tunnel, past the place where he had first told me to stay close, he did not let go. Caleb was waiting near the parking lot, leaning against his car with his arms crossed. His eyebrows shot up when he saw our hands. For one terrifying second, my whole body locked. Mason felt it. His thumb moved once over mine. He did not drop my hand. Caleb looked between us, then slowly smiled. "About time." Mason groaned. I laughed before I could stop myself, and just like that, the fear loosened. Not gone. Not completely. But smaller. Manageable. We lost the championship that night. I will always remember that. But I will also remember Mason's hand in mine, warm and steady, as we walked toward the parking lot like two guys who were finally done pretending the season was the only thing that had changed.